the primary and secondary education is one of the best policies that, if gotten right, we will just be on fast train. Now, what we should do is to have compulsory primary and secondary education. Of course, some states can say, yes, they have compulsory primary and secondary education. And of course, they have different challenges why people are not able to really send their children to school. Either the children are supporting their parents, by helping them buy and sell things, or maybe the parents cannot really afford to send the children to school. Now, we are going to have compulsory secondary and primary education sponsored by the federal government, not just the states. Yes, the states are still going to be the ones to run it, but the federal government will be the one to provide the tools, the rules, and everything that has to do with the primary education. Why is this important? I remembered when my children were studying at a primary school in Lagos. Absolutely amazing, absolutely beautiful. I was impressed. But when we moved to Switzerland, Geneva, I went to their school. It was absolutely different. The school in Lagos was a private school, but this is public school in Geneva. I was blown away. And I'm like, how come Nigerian people cannot have the same quality of education? First of all, parents are so involved in the education of their children. Children are taught not just teaching them, they are groomed to become the leaders of tomorrow. And then recent studies have shown that any child who cannot read at grade 3, they tend to struggle, throughout their academic life. So in Nigeria, if any child gets to grade 3 and they cannot read, we will now declare emergency for them, whereby they have to go for extra classes. We have to do everything necessary to ensure that they are able to read. In fact, by the time they get to grade 4, they should start doing maths already, start doing, arithmetics comfortably. I'm not talking about private schools. I'm talking about the schools being sponsored by the federal government. So that's actually one of the things we have written down in our policy, where the federal government is the one that's going to support secondary and primary education, making sure that it is compulsory for every child to go to school. We provide those parents who cannot afford to send their children to school, the government will have to pay them some money just to allow the children to go to school. Yes, that is really possible, where they are, they will receive some stipends just to allow the children to go to school. In the policy, I also mentioned where we can deliver 20 million computers to families, 20 million Nigerian families, not individuals now. So say people have 2 children, they are only entitled to 1. So 1 computer per family. Now, let me quickly explain this. I'm going to explain this in more details in the other policy. But in summary, the primary and secondary education has to move from the state to the government, the federal government, because the federal government will now have enough money to sponsor that, being that the university education is going to move on. Now, the next thing also will be vocational education training as well. So we are going to take vocational education training as very important part of studying, not just as a secondary, like the way we see it today. We're going to teach people how to use tooling, so people are able to get employment. People are able to create things by themselves. So university education is not just the final destination. There are other routes through which people can become very successful. That is why primary and secondary education is one aspect of the policy that we think that is very, very important. Vocational education should be institutionalized. We have to institutionalize vocational education, whereby teaching people how to do, handwork, tooling, and every other thing, including plumbing, welding, electrical maintenance, phone fixing, all of those things, we have to institutionalize it. Now, another good reason why the federal government should also take over the primary and secondary education is that today, we do not have externals, people from other parts of the world, from China, from Japan, from the US, from Switzerland, from Europe, really other parts of the world, to come and help us manage our primary education. Does it mean that we don't have people who are capable of managing it? No, that is not the intention here. But for us to move as fast as we would want to, we should get people from India, get people from China who are going to teach us mathematics, who are going to restructure the Nigerian educational system, also send our teachers out. For instance, there was a time, the Nigerian teachers were sent to Singapore, and they went out there, they trained themselves. But what we're talking about here is to bring in thousands thousands of teachers, expatriates, to come in here. Just the way you bring in expatriates to come and work in the oil field, it doesn't mean there are not enough Nigerian engineers. But sometimes when you bring resources together, you tend to get even better results out of it. So if the federal government is in charge of the secondary and primary education, the quality we are going to get will be different. So this policy proposal is to say that, number one, federal government takes over the management, the running of primary and secondary education. Number two, bring in more people from other parts of the world so that we are going to catch up as fast as possible. Number three, we should provide enough tools, provide enough equipment in those schools. Number four, the environment itself. It does not cost so much to build schools that has playground, that has the library, that has computer room, that has beautiful environment where children can play and study at the same time. I believe so strongly in this policy recommendation that if we get the primary education and secondary education right, every other thing becomes very easy. And remember, everybody must not go to the university. Everybody must not go to the university, but anyone who finishes their secondary education should have enough information, should have enough power to survive in a society. They can choose to go for further vocational training, or they can also choose to go to the university. That, I believe, if we fix it, we have fixed the Nigerian society.